So again, thanks so much for being a NODA volunteer. You are deeply appreciated. When you get onto the unit, of course, you've already introduced yourself to the CCRC and to the patient's nurse. So when you come to the patient's room, the first thing that you always want to do is gel. Make sure you gel in and gel out all the time, because there are secret shoppers on every unit who are paying attention to whether you've done that. If you haven't, we're going to hear about it. Also, when you walk into the room, take a look at the door. If there are additional contact precautions that you need to observe, like gowns or even eye protection, those are going to be displayed. Sometimes you also have to wear gloves. If that's the case, make sure that you observe all of those also when you come in. And there's always carts outside the room that have those supplies so that you can put them on before you walk into the room. So then you come in, and your patient will be here in bed. And the first thing I always do is I come in and I say, "Hi, Mr. Jones, my name is Elizabeth. I'm a volunteer and I'm going to be spending some time with you." Now, I'm a person who normally touches people. Given COVID right now, probably maybe you don't want to touch them. But even so, introduce yourself and tell them that you're going to be spending some time here. We're trying to be sensitive to the idea that there are some people who really want to be able to die alone. And so if the patient for some reason grimaces or turns away from you, when you say this, then talk with the nurse and find out, hey, you think Mr. Jones really wants me to be here or not? That's never happened to me, but I've heard it does happen, and we try to be sensitive to that. So after you've introduced yourself, pull up a chair, make yourself comfortable, sit down, and probably your patient is going to have all kinds of lines and all sorts of things, and maybe even a ventilator or something else that's going on. Try to stay out of the way of all of that stuff. And let me draw your attention to the monitor. So the monitor, when people are transitioned to comfort care, frequently nursing will turn the monitor off. You can ask for it to be turned back on, and it's going to give you some things that are pretty relevant to what's happening with the patient. Blood pressure, respirations, and heart rate are all going to change as a patient enters a period of actively dying. The heart rate, as you would imagine, starts to decline. Blood pressure starts to decline. Respirations become very erratic. And you can look at that and get that, and if that makes you feel more comfortable about what's going on, I actually like to have the monitors on. So you can ask the nurse to put them back on. It's good to remember that the monitors are always being monitored by the nurses outside of the room. So that data is actually being gathered elsewhere. So then just make yourself at home. Be with Mr. Jones. And whatever it is that you want to do during this time, you've already given the biggest gift that you could possibly give by offering your presence to someone who's transitioning. So if you want to play music on your cell phone, go ahead and do that. If you have prayers that you really want to use them. The nurse frequently will have information about somebody's faith tradition. If you want to observe that and use their faith tradition in prayers, that's fine. If you just want to sit quietly and meditate with the person, that's great too. So, as you know, we say as NODA volunteers, spend a couple hours here, don't spend more than that. So if, however, you're here and your patient enters active dying, you see the blood pressure falling, the heart rate falling, the respirations getting fewer, and you want to stay, and you can, please do. The other thing to remember is it's okay to have 2 NODA volunteers in the room at one time. And then finally, the other thing that often happens is when family and friends decide to leave somebody when they're dying, they frequently will stay in the hospital. And you may have them come back to the doorway or even come into the room. When that happens, what you do is just stand up and introduce yourself and say, "Hey, I'm a volunteer. Would you like me to leave?" 100% of the time that I've had this experience, the family or the loved one has said to me, no, don't leave. I just wanted to check in and see how things were going. So that's what happens if your patient does enter active dying when you're here and dies while you're here. Once the patient has died, the staff will come into the room, the physician will declare the person dead, and then you are welcome to leave. You can actually leave at any time. If you feel uncomfortable at any time, you are absolutely welcome to leave. Just advise the nurse that you've decided to do that. And thanks again for being a NODA volunteer. When you arrive on the unit, you may find out that it's a locked unit. And so your volunteer badge will not allow you to swipe in, but what you can do is use the telephone to call, or the CCRC, this person you're going to introduce yourself to, will see you and just open up the door for you.
That's because I was just drinking a frappe too.
So you'll come in and introduce yourself. Hi, good to see you. I'm the NODA volunteer. And the CCRC will tell you what room you need to go to.